Hey guys, so a little change of scenery. I've got the truck in the shop, and it's time to finally get this winch wired up that the subscriber sent to me. I'll keep his name private, but like I keep saying, insane to me that someone wanted to send me one of these. I've wanted a winch my entire life. I've never thought I'd ever actually spend the money on one. I definitely never thought I'd ever have a Warn, but here we are. It's time to get it wired up. So I'm sure you guys noticed the way that all this started is when I got the truck. I was talking about how I've got this receiver hitch in the front, and I was saying that opens me up to the possibility of having a hitch-mounted winch, and that's what got him interested in sending me one. So that's why I've got it up here. So that means that this won't be its permanent install, or at least this winch is gonna be capable to be mounted in the front or the back, is what I'm trying to say. So that means, ideally, I need to have a electrical hookup in the front of the truck and at the rear of the truck. There's two ways that I can do that. I can either permanently run a wire underneath the hood and then out underneath the bumper somewhere and have a plug somewhere in here. I haven't really tried to locate a spot yet. And then have one that runs along the frame and goes out next to the rear bumper. Or what some people do is they just have a set of jumper cables with clamps, and they just clamp it to the battery whenever they need to use the winch, leave the hood open, run the cable all the way around the truck to the back, or run it all the way to or just connect right here at the front. I want to come up with a permanent way to have a plug at the front and the rear. That's my plan, but we're gonna have to see how that goes. I haven't done any preliminary inspecting or looking about how I'm going to do any of that. I just ordered some wire that I think will work and some plugs, and I'm going to see if I can get this figured out and get this working. I've given myself the entire day for this because this should be a pretty simple and easy thing, but I've learned in my years of experience, anytime you think that a job is only going to take 3 hours, it takes a day and a half. So we'll see how it actually ends up going, but let me show you what I got. So here I have a 2-piece set of these plugs. These are the typical quick connect jumper cable plugs. Hook into each other like that. But 2 of those, the big lugs that have to be crimped on, and then they've got caps for when they're not in use. So my idea is that I can put one of these on the winch and one of these on the cable. The cable's coming out of the winch and then the cable's coming off the battery, and be able to just plug it in and power it that way. And then here, I thought about just buying wire, and it's honestly, everywhere that I looked, it's about the same price as just buying a set of these already wired up long jumper cables. So that's what I ended up getting. I read a lot of reviews to make sure that the wire quality was actually good, and these looked to be like the best deal on Amazon. Energizer has a set that I almost bought, but I think it was a little bit more, something wasn't. I can't remember what exactly was swaying me from that, but something kept me from getting the Energizer set. So this is a non-sponsored. It's called None? If it works, I'll link it, I guess. So it comes with a little bag, some installation instructions, little wire brush. I didn't even know it came with all this stuff. Some gloves. Those gloves are exactly the same pair as what that CC saw that I reviewed came with, except these are smaller. Those are the exact same gloves. Very nice. So this, if I remember right, this is meant to be like a permanent install jumper cable. I think you wire this to your battery and then you have that plug. And so this gives me the plug to the front. I'll have no wiring to do. I can just attach this at the front and run this through, and then I've got a plug ready at the front all the time. And then as long as I just attach this to the cables on the winch, it should just be that simple, and then the front will be ready. And then I was thinking this for the rear. These are 20 something feet long. So I'm gonna have to see if it's long enough for the truck. the winch does have some pretty long leads on it already. So that should take up, if this is too short to reach all the way from the battery all the way to the rear, the leads on the winch should take up the rest of the length. But so this cable is clamps on one end and the quick connect plug on the other. So I think the idea is you wire this to your vehicle and you have that plug stick out somewhere, and then if you ever need to jump somebody, all you got to do is just plug this into that plug, and then you can hook these clamps on their battery and boost them off without even having to open the hood of your vehicle if you have this plug sticking out of your grill or something. And then these are so long that you don't have to get hood to hood, bumper to bumper, front bumper to front bumper like you usually do to boost them off. So that's another reason why I kind of lean towards potentially not actually running this through the frame and everything. So one of my ideas was that I have this plug, this wire wired into the front of the truck, and then I have this plug. And then I was thinking I could cut these clamps off and then attach one of these plugs on the other end and have a wire that's just this plug to this plug. So when I'm using the winch in the front, I use this, go from the battery to the winch, and then I want to use it in the back. I was thinking I could have these clamps cut off, this end on it at the front, run it through the truck. Whenever I need to use it at the back, I plug this plug into this plug, and then I have this plug mounted at the bumper so I can plug into the winch. But my other idea that I'm kind of leaning towards is not doing that. Obviously having this at the front still. And then I could keep these jumper cables as they are, that way they can still be used as jumper cables. And then if I ever need to use the winch at the rear, I just run this along the outside of the truck all the way around, and then I just clamp these onto the battery at the front of the truck and then plug this into the winch to use it that way. And then if I ever need to boost someone off, I have this super long jumper cable that I can use by plugging this plug into this plug, and then I can boost them off the other way. So it seems more versatile that way, but it's also going to be a hassle because then I end up with this super long bundle of jumper cables that I have to store somewhere all the time. Along with, since the winch isn't actually truly mounted to the truck, I have to come up with a spot to store the winch also. So, I mean, that's really not too bulky. I don't know. I'm not going to decide yet. But so that's what I got as far as wire. Besides that, I went ahead and bought 50 feet of loom wire protector. In case I do put the wire underneath the truck, I'll put this on it if I do end up going that route. And then I got this bag of heat shrink, which looks way too big, but it says it shrinks down small enough. That's for everywhere that I cut the wires and crimp on these connectors. I'll heat shrink over them with this stuff. And I hope that shrinks down small enough. That looks humongous. But it said in the listing that it will, so we'll see. So I guess let's start with the simple thing of attaching this lead to the front of the truck and coming up with a way to route this. And I'll put some wire protector on this too, since it's going to be underneath the hood all the time. So I'm a little bit ashamed to admit this, but this is actually going to be the first time I've ever even had the hood on this truck open. I've had it for over a month, and I've never even opened the hood on it before. Alright, so update. Like I predicted, this is all taking much longer than I expected, but I'll show you what I've gotten done. So the best location I could come up with was right here, mounted to the bottom of the frame, behind where that tow hook attaches, and that goes up and around into the battery. If you know anything about these Anderson connectors, they are really not that easy to plug in and unplug, especially unplug. This one I've worked it in and out a few times and it's getting easier, and I put a little bit of dielectric grease on it. But so that's accessible through right here. You can reach through and reach it. Wouldn't be that good if the whole front of the truck was in the water, but you would always have the option of just hooking up the jumper cable if I leave the jumper cables out, could always clamp up to the battery and just come and plug to it, because that other plug will be right here once I correct that or change it. So that comes up right here and around and to the battery terminals there. So I think next I'm going to see if that jumper cable that came with it is long enough to reach from that plug back to the hitch, which I am going to be surprised if it can. But we do also, like I was saying, we've got this much. Once that's uncoiled, that'll be pretty long. So that may make it reach. I'll have to see. Okay, so just for the test, I just clamped those to that bar. That's about where the battery is. And you can see we can go back and quite easily reach. We've got this much extra. I don't have a reducer sleeve. That's something I need to remember to get in case I ever do need to use the winch on the rear. But I mean, that would work in a pinch. And another good thing about if I keep it this way is that if I'm ever with somebody, I'd have these set of jumper cables not mounted to my truck, so I could, if they just got stuck, I could just pull my winch out and put it in their hitch and hook up to their battery, and then it would work for another vehicle. So I think I am going to run with this because it's got several perks. I have the long jumper cables that I can use to boost somebody off. I don't have to go to the hassle of mounting it to the underside of my truck. And I'm set up to use it on someone else's vehicle without having to buy another set of cables that I'd have to use for them. So I think I am just going to stick with this. So that means all I got left to do is add that Anderson connector to the winch and then test everything out and make sure it's working. Okay, so these Anderson connectors that I bought, the loose ones, are for 1 gauge wire, which is the size that the jumper cable is, but the wires coming out of the back of the winch are 2, so they're smaller. So when I crimped the connectors onto here, they expanded so much because they're taking up so much room to collapse onto the wire. They're having to mushroom so much to pinch onto that wire that they don't fit into the back of the connector because there's not enough wire taking up the inside of that lug. So I went ahead and ordered some 2-AUG connectors. They'll be here tomorrow, but so I can't complete this today, but I can test everything by plugging the end of this jumper cable into the plug that I added under here, and clamping these alligator clamps onto the lugs of the winch, those ones that I just connected. At least I think this will work. Got power at the remote. It's pretty fast. So there it works. And then we have free spool. Nice. So at least we can see that everything's operating and working. I'll just have to tomorrow, I can cut these lugs that I crimped on there off and then crimp on the correct ones, and then I'll be able to add the connector, and then that'll be good because we see that the cable reaches all the way around. I can hook it over the mirror and go to the back and reach the back that way. And once we actually have the connector on, let me take this off. Anyone else always do that so your cables don't touch? I've had them spark too many times. So once this actually has that plug on the end, it'll be a plug like this. I'll be able to just take this and plug it into that plug I added underneath the truck. And that plug I added does have a cap right here. So I will put this cap into that so that it's not getting full of dirt and mud and road debris when I'm driving. And then the The only fear that there is that hook potentially hooking a branch or something. But I typically don't run over debris because I don't want stuff to hook a brake line or any other electrical line. So I usually, if there's a stick in the road, I always move it out of the way anyway. So it'll just be another precaution I'll have to keep in mind all the time, is that there is a potential of that. Those winch cable power lines getting hooked on something. But now that I can use that, I can add the hook to this I've been wanting to do. You gotta watch that winch safety. Anyone that doesn't know, I'm not gonna do it. I've heard of people holding on to the rope right here and they're sucking it in, and then they'll smash their hand against that hook, get it caught in a bind, and then you got 12,000 pounds of pulling force pulling it in. I think that's probably why they put this tag on the end. You definitely want to hold it where you can't get pinched against that, because that could be bad. That could break your hand really fast. I think this remote might be wireless also. Oh yeah, it is. Look at that. Very interesting. Yeah, there's a mode button up there. You press and hold it and it switches. Oh, that's cool. I'll probably always just plug it in anyway. And hopefully this goes without saying, but never. Ow. But never, ever keep anything like that inside the cab of your vehicle. In a wreck, so this weighs 87 pounds. So in a wreck, and that if you rolled over, imagine if that thing started flying around. That would very much end your days here if that hit you in the side of the head. Alright, well, the continuation of the video that I was recording on Sunday. It's now Tuesday, and I have the correct connectors, I think. These look a lot more right. But I've been thinking, I don't think that my plug down there at the bottom of the frame is a good idea. I started thinking about driving into some tall water, and that plug is hooked directly up to the battery. It does have a cap on it. Maybe it would never be a problem, but I'm not thinking I'm willing to take the risk just for that winch. So I'm going to take that off, which is a shame because I was proud of the way that it ended up. It was a lot of work to get that bolted on. That bracket has this bolt right in the way, so I had to I threw a bolt with a washer on it in there, and then I used 2 hooks to push it around inside of there, and I finally turned it around and got it fed down, and I had to hold it with some pliers and thread that nut on. I was really happy with the way that it turned out, but that's the only place I could find to put it. The radiator is so huge, there's nowhere up higher, and also I don't want it to be sticking out all the time, so I liked that it was recessed in there. So I can't really, it'd be pretty cool if it was just right here on the top of the bumper, but I don't think that's going to work. So what I think I'm going to do, let me get the hood opened up here. Sorry about the headlights, I wish those didn't turn on every time you open the door. I think what I'm going to do, can you believe this truck doesn't have a light under the hood? Every modern truck I've worked under recently. Oh, that's the laser pointer. So what I think I'm going to change this to is I'm just going to unbolt that and pull this up and coil it up and zip tie it to this bracket right here. And that way, whenever I need it, I can just flop it out and plug into it. And if one day I want to come up with a cleaner, better install than that, then I can change to it. But for now, I think I'm kind of asking for trouble having that thing hooked up or hanging down there at the very bottom. I try to never drive through deep water, but things happen. Sometimes a water hole is deeper than you think when you're driving down some of those logging roads. And I'd honestly, it's not worth the risk, so I'm taking it off. It looks pretty late, but it's not. But it also looks cold, and it is. I don't know what the temperature is right now, but it's been like, it was like 22 when I got up this morning or something like that, and then it got up to 50 for a little while, and it dropped right back off after 4 o'clock. It's pretty, it really is pretty cold. I prefer the cold weather over summer a lot. Oh, I forgot I zip tied this. No wonder that's not pulling up. Bumper makes it a lot easier to get up. All right, there we are. Almost. These crimp-on connectors were too big for the wire that the winch uses. So when I crimped that, smashed it so wide that it wouldn't slide into here the way that it's supposed to. Okay, so I'm thinking if I can just kind of coil this up, I can leave it sitting right here on top of the battery, which isn't ideal. If this was a little bit longer, I would have room to go down and over and more towards the middle, and I could mount it up higher, but it's just short enough that that was the best spot. That was the only spot I could really come up with to mount it. Instead of mounting it, I'll just leave it in a coil here, resting on top of the battery. And that doesn't look like it gets close to the hood right there. The only thing that leaves me needing to do is I just gotta add one of these connectors to the winch. You may have noticed earlier in the video that I just lightly said ow whenever I set this winch in here. Ow. I did properly smash my finger with that winch, setting it into this box. I've discovered it's easier to get over pain faster if you don't let yourself have a reaction to it when it happens. So usually, even if I get hurt pretty bad, I just ignore it. That was a good one. Seriously, my finger, that was 2 days ago now, 2.5 days ago, and it is still hurting. Pretty good. So, my socket set, my jumper cables, and this winch fit in here pretty good. So what happened, when I set it in there, I don't know if you can see, but the sides of this box dent in to give room for the handles to sit flush. This winch is wide enough, it fits in there like perfectly. So when you drop it in there and you hit these spots where the box dents in, all of a sudden that is right where you're holding on. And this thing weighs 90 pounds. So that was some pretty good smashing force. Another good thing about delaying this another day or two is that it gave me the opportunity to order some proper size heat shrink since that other stuff was not right. I used to be, back in high school, I was really into car audio, like subwoofers and stuff. I know that doesn't really fit my my character now. I'm still really into stuff like that. My music taste, I think, would surprise a lot of you. But this reminds me of those audio days, wiring up sound systems. Really the only other time I've ever used this really heavy gauge wire. Trying to power those super powerful sound systems. Alright, I ended up still not getting that done the other night at my house because the little lugs in here that had to be crimped were insane to crimp. But I came up here to the shop, I put them in the vise, I was able to crimp them with a vise, bench vise. So we got this thing operational now, so you can see what we got going on here. Nothing sophisticated, I wanted it to be simple. So now I got to disconnect, it just goes right into the receiver, and it works. So that is great. And then we already saw that we can run the jumper cables all the way around, put it in the receiver in the back. I just keep this thing in my toolbox all the time, and I am finally winch capable. So hopefully somebody finds this entertaining or helpful if they're looking to do a similar setup. Thanks again to that subscriber that sent this. Thanks to all you guys for your support all the time. Thanks for watching.